everybody, and welcome to our monthly BizSmart webinar series, where we educate our customers and entrepreneurs on ways to empower their business. COVID-19 revealed to us just how susceptible our businesses are to external factors. And whether we know it or not, there's always a risk that we do not know anything about and we might not be very well cushioned against. This means that as entrepreneurs, we have to keep reinventing ourselves within the business space in order to ensure that we have what it takes to survive the really tough times that may come sometimes. And this might be a very difficult thing to navigate, especially now with very limited resources, but worry not. Springboard Capital has graciously brought you webinars in the past that would be a very good place to start. So should you wish to browse through our previous webinars, kindly visit our YouTube page, that is Springboard Capital Limited, and let us grow together. So today we shall be focusing on business strategy execution. We're saying that things really changed, especially after COVID, and some of the business frameworks and models that we were used to are no longer applicable. So then how do we see to it that we're still surviving, that we're still standing, that we're still maneuvering this business space and these businesses that have cost us so much? So there's been a lot of restructuring, there's been a lot of changes, and people are rewriting their strategies, people are rewriting their vision and their mission statements in the business space. So it is one thing to see to it that you have come up with a very good strategy, but it's also something else to see to it that this strategy that is very well articulated on paper is well executed, because that sometimes is the difference between the businesses that stand the test of time and those ones that do not. So joining us today, we have an amazing speaker who is going to tell us and graciously show us how do we define strategy? How do we go ahead and rewrite the strategy that we may work, that we may have, and see to it that the laid out strategy is well executed for success. So I am going to tell you a brief introduction about our speaker. His name is Mr. Kenan Mbaye. He is an amazing guru in the space. He's a seasoned finance professional with over 20 years of progressive experience spanning different sectors in ICT, hospitality, and financial services. He successfully handles strategic matters in finance, operations, and ICT, making significant contributions in supporting businesses identify and act on the value drivers for their strategies, enhancing profitability, improving efficiency, and optimizing stakeholder returns. He is also a budding angel investor. He has an MBA. He's an MBA graduate and also holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree. He's a certified fellow member of Association for Chartered Certified Accountants and also holds a Certified Information Systems Auditor qualification. I mean, this is just the right person to be speaking today up to us about strategy, helping us define and understand strategy, because for most of us, strategy is a jargon. It's a thing that people talk about. It's a very big document that is meant to be seen and not to be heard. So over to you, Mr. Mbaye. We're so delighted to have you this afternoon. We want you to break down this thing for us that has always been a jargon, that has always been a thing that we do not understand. We want to not only understand what strategy is, but also get to understand how we can very well execute this strategy for business success. So over to you, Mr. Mbaye. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Grace and the Springboard Capital team. I wish to thank all of us who've been able to join us today. Just kindly allow me to share my screen so that it can guide our conversation. So I realize that we have slightly over 30 minutes to do this. Best thing to do, even as far as strategy is concerned, you make best use of what you have. So I'll start my presentation with this slide. This slide is blank on purpose. And a very simple exercise I'd like us to do. If you have a piece of paper and a pen, I'd like you to do two things. Please write down the things that are in your mind right now. When you walked in at about 1 o'clock, what is in your mind? Is it a debtor who hasn't paid money? Is it A meeting in school? Is it just write whatever it is. Now, as you're writing this is confidential to you. You're not going to share it with anybody, but just write it down. Write the top 3 things in your mind. Okay. Right. So in the next session below that, please write down the 3 things you're going to do after this webinar. After this webinar, you're going to go to your emails and respond to all of them, or you're going to go out and meet a client, or you're going to pick your children from school, or whatever it is you're going to do, or there's another meeting that's coming up. Now, the purpose of doing this is to allow us to focus. So you can take that piece of paper and fold it and keep it away for the next 30 minutes only. After that, you can pick it up and continue with the things that you've put there. It allows us the freedom to actually participate fully. All right, so then at the end of the 30 minutes, what are we looking at taking home with us? 1, we'll have an overview of the strategy. Let me start by saying this will be a very practical, as much as possible, practical presentation. But for us to be on the same page, you'll have just a few slides on theory. We'll have an item on strategy execution in action. Then we'll debrief through the strategy execution drivers, and then a summary conclusion. So I'd like to engage us a little bit on the chart section. When you look at this slide here, these are brands that we've probably interacted with them in the past. Just write in your chat section, what do these people make you feel? Now, you don't need to write all of them. Just pick one. Just pick one and write. When you look at these people, what do they make you feel? What are they known for? What standouts about them? Grace will help us with any feedback that comes from the chat, but maybe one brave one can also go ahead and I think do it in your mic. What comes to mind when you see these brands? Jumia, Mr. Price, Safaricom, Art Cafe, Strathmore, Uber, Quickmart. And yes, we could have picked so many other brands, but this is maybe adequate for the purpose of this exercise. So Grace, anything that comes to the chat, maybe you can help us on that, or anybody who's ready to speak in the mic. Let's engage a little bit on this.
Right. Anastasia Kariuki says, Safaricom, very
Yes.
Kenyan.
Safaricom is Kenyan.
Gaduru, yes, very Kenyan. And
Okay.
Caroline Gaduru says, Strathmore, business programs.
Business
Programs.
Okay. Programs, okay.
Uber, Mr. Karedi
Uber.
says Uber reminds him of convenience and availability. We have Anastasia again saying Strathmore, where high-level education. I mean, we have Steve saying Safaricom, connecting people. Karen Turanera says Jumia, seamless shopping and delivery. Anastasia says at cafe, dates. I mean. Then Emma says Uber, again, convenience. Perry says Jumia, convenience. Richard says Quickmart, cheap prices. Okay, cheap is relative, I see. We have Terry saying at cafe, great customer service. Mary says Jumia, online business. Should I go on?
I think we have more than enough talking points. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, a very active participation. I usually say at this point, this webinar is half done, because what we just did is 50% of what strategy is. When you put out your own logo out there, when you hear Springboard Capital, when you hear Mwalimu Biashara, when you hear so-and-so construction, what would people be saying on the other side of the table? That is 50% of the strategy. And you will see, even as we unpack this, strategy just pops out. We can't place a finger on it. When someone says Safaricom is very Kenyan, or someone says Jumia, there's something about convenience, we will get to see that strategy is the sum total of all that happens with these brands. But just moving on, again, I promised a few slides on theory. Some scholars in the past have tried to define what strategy is. Michael Porter is a known one, and he says that competitive strategy is about being different. Uber is different in a certain way. And there are so many others in the system, but Uber is different in a certain way because they have a unique mix of value. There's a way they deliver that value for someone to say convenience, for someone to say about Strathmore Business School, high quality education. So you see, Michael Porter said it's what makes us different. Another group of scholars have teamed up together and put strategy made up of three things: the fundamental goals of the organization, the scope of its activities, and the competitive advantages they have to deliver strategy. Again, many people have put this together, but I was thinking for the purposes of this session today, let's agree that strategy is a long-term direction of an organization. If you're in the room and in the construction industry, what is the long-term direction of your construction firm? Where do you see it going in the next 3-5 years? In the introduction, of course, we had that strategies are changing, and we'll tackle that, but it's important to see that whatever happens, we need to have a long-term direction. I think that's a simple way of putting this for now. The last slide on theory is about the strategy model. When we hear strategy, it has three parts. The first part is the strategic position. The second part are the strategic choices you take. And the last part is strategy in action. This model defines what strategy is. On the position, most of the time, this is not a problem because everybody in the room or most businesses have already determined their position in that they've decided to go into construction or supplying services, or they've gone into, they are a law firm, or they are whatever they are. So the position has already been taken. Of course, then they understand the environment they're dealing with, they have the purpose, they have the culture that makes up the organization. Most times, this is not an issue. Now, the second part is the strategic choices. Now, here we are saying the direction and the method that we're using. When we talk about business strategy, we are talking about what makes you different. What is your unfair advantage? If, say, you're in the supply business, why should people come to you, not go to another person? If you're a trainer, whatever you are, business strategy is quite important. Of course, we are talking about diversification. That is to say, how do you deliver your work? How diverse are you? How many products are you choosing to offer? In how many geographical locations are you? Are you serving businesses in Nairobi, or are you serving businesses in the county? Some of us have actually even gone international. Are you serving your clients outside the country, outside the borders? All this sits under strategic choices. Of course, your innovation strategy, and then whether you're going to go it alone, whether you're going to make acquisitions, or whether you're going to work with alliances. This section also, ordinarily, most times, it's well determined. It does not change quite often. Most of the time, people are well aware about this. Obviously, the COVID environment has challenged this because there's what we actually look at, something called emerging strategy, which you're going to look at in a short time. Now, I'd like us to spend more time on the third item, which is strategy in action. That is the formulation and implementation. Just like the introduction, this is where the issues are. This is where the rubber meets the road. And after this, we're going to be focusing on that. What is your performance and evaluation structure? Are you happy about where you are at? How do you develop your strategy? How do you organize? Who is in charge? Who is the leader? How do you manage change in your organizations? And then how do you practice it? Now, this gives us at least a mind map. When we hear strategy, what is it? It is your strategic position, the choices you take, and the actions you take, right? So that's it about theory. But just a few thoughts now on strategy implementation. Some scholars did some work. Interesting statistics here, that 80% of companies have the right strategies, yet only 14% implement them well. You can imagine that. The issue is not having the strategy in place. That one we have. we actually know our level of research, our level of input, no question that is working. But to think only 14% of them implement them well, then it makes this subject very attractive in that there's a lot to dig in. A similar study was done earlier, which put the real success rate at between 10% and 30%. That is to say, if you have 10 businesses, only 3 of them will implement their strategies well. And it could even be less than 3 because this is between 10% and 30%. Now, this is the crux of the matter. What do we do? And here at Mwalimu Biashara, we have distilled the reasons for low strategy execution into 4 key things. If you forget everything else we say in this webinar, please take this home. The 4 reasons why strategies work or not work is the structures that we have, the systems we have in place, our people, and alignment. Most of the things can be put in these 4 categories, and we'll see that as we approach and we engage a little bit more. So the structure, the systems, the people, and the alignment. Okay. So I'd like us to look at strategy in action. There's a clip here that I would like to share. But before we share the clip, let me tell us a little story. So I usually drop my daughter to school, and we have established a way to work in the morning. We know what time to wake up, what to do. It's a very well-oiled system, and most of us probably have their morning routine. So this day, we are late. This particular day, we are late. We are all trying to catch up with time. So I leave the house earlier and I go to the car just to wait for my daughter to come in. When I get to the car, I realize I have a flat tire. I'm thinking, of all days, this is the worst day to have a flat tire. So obviously I start thinking, so what should I do quickly here? I do a quick mind map. Do I have my jack ready? Are my tires ready? What do I need to do? So even before anybody comes in, I'm already on it. At full effort and full speed, I go into changing this tire as quickly as I can. Of course, at that time, my daughter has already come from the house and she's jittery. She's not happy. We are all running late. Of course, that encourages me to work even faster. Long story short, I managed to change the tire. I glanced at my watch. I spent about 15 minutes changing one tire. Now, the clip we're about to watch is a group of people who have perfected the art of changing tires. Now, these people changed the tire in 4 seconds. Amazing. 4 seconds, the tire is changed. Now, it's not only one tire that they changed, they actually changed 4 tires. And they do a little bit more on this. So let's take a time and look at this clip. Now, as we look at it, what I'd request us to do is take in as much detail as you can. From the clip, we'll be able to look at structure, system, people, and alignment. Right. So I'd like us then to quickly do a debrief. Let's see, what did we observe in that clip? Go ahead and you can put out your comments on the chat. What did we see? Yeah, Victor, I see you had requested that we reshare, which we have. But let's see quickly, what did we observe? It could be anything. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. But on the chat, what did we see? Maybe Grace, you can help us with the responses as they come in.
Sure. Karen says efficiency and organization.
Okay.
And PK says, I saw efficiency and accuracy. Kara says, everyone was in their specific place.
Okay.
Then Priscilla says, teamwork.
Okay.
PK says, readiness. Victor says, Red Bull has the fastest pit stop. Then we have Mary says, speed. Anastasia says, speed and execution. Rosemary says, there was synergy.
Okay.
Justa says, everyone had specific tasks. Yeah, and many more.
Many more. Thanks a lot. So I think those are very good responses, and for sure they are going to sit into each of them. But let's look at the first item. We are talking about structure. Structure here means the authority and reporting lines. Let's look at a few questions here on structure. Now, when this activity was happening, where do we think the CEO of this organization was? Where was the CEO at the point? A few responses. Where was the CEO? Again, in chat, or we can just quickly have a quick someone speak about it. Where do you think the CEO was? And why we are asking this question is we will get to see how structure works out for us, and even in our own organizations. Of course, there are those of us who are a sole proprietorship, probably you don't have a big team. Some of us have a small team, some of us have a big team. The principles apply the same. When we ask that question, even you as probably a sole owner of the business, there's an element where you have to think as a CEO, there's an element where you have to think as someone else. But if we look at this, a few responses from the chat would say, the CEO was playing golf, for sure. Somewhere in Bahamas for holidays, absolutely. Now, this underscores a very important thing about strategy execution. Someone was sipping margarita in Maldives, no doubt. But one thing about structure is things get working. We all don't have to be there for things to get working. It's so well organized. We know as the heads of organizations or the owners of our businesses, structure means we've arranged our work such that things happen in our absence. Obviously, it takes a lot of work and time to do that. But one key thing about it is things happen. Another thing I'll ask us maybe here is things are flowing so well. One starts, the next person takes over, all that is structure. What we are saying here is jobs are grouped in a logical fashion. There is what starts, what's next, what has to wait, what comes before the other, all that is around structure. Very important in the success of strategy execution because business moves very fast. But we cannot think about a plumber. If you have a building that you're building, you get the plumber to come and do the plumbing work once and for all. They take time, they measure your building, they put the plumbing lines, they make sure the plumbing system is working. Then they go away. You can imagine what would happen if every time there's a plumbing problem, a plumber has to come. That's where we're saying the structure would not be working in that case. If you look at that brief, again, the people are not talking to each other. We didn't see someone tell someone, move a little bit, you're in my way, I'll come first, you'll come second. Again, around structure, another thing is processes, policies, and procedures are in place. And in our own organization, very important for success of strategy to work. We need to have the way we do things, our operating procedures, our escalation methods, all that has to be in place around structure, okay? And again, we'll take probably questions at the end, but the next item around a strategy implementation is people, okay? When you look at this, at this structure here, all these people are here doing the work. I want us to think about this gentleman who's in front here. Now, when you notice when the car came in at a very high speed. Usually they come in at 80 kilometers per hour in this pit stop. But this guy is motivated to stand here and risk his life. Because if a mistake happens, he'll be crushed. So where people are concerned, how is it that these people are so motivated? Now, in our own organizations, an item around people and structure implementation is people need to be motivated. People need to have leadership. There is a leader somewhere, the CEO is playing golf, has already made it possible for these people to be so aligned that they do their work very quickly. Now, something else about people is about decision making. Who determines what's happening where? If you look at this gentleman on the end here, it might look like he's not doing his work, but this guy, his main work is to check everybody has finished their work and he signals for the car to leave. If he delays or there's a problem, he needs to make the decisions very, very fast. And in our own organizations, when you have an accountant seated somewhere, when you have a salesman in the front line, you're relying on that person to make the right decisions. Obviously, if people don't make the right decisions, there are always HR ways of dealing with them. Lastly, something about people also, everybody knows their work here. When you talk about how do we measure the success of an organization, if there's a sales budget to meet, the sales front people need to go out and be at their best. You have to rely on them. If it's about the operations person, they need to make sure that the operations are kicking so well. And that is a very important aspect around people. So next would be systems. Systems is what translates our strategic to the everyday. Now, strategy is a big document somewhere, it's a big concept, but what do we do on a daily basis? How is our finance system, for example? How do we account for debtors? How do we account for profits? How do we account for the fixed assets that we have? Next, you can have other systems that have to be working for us to be able to run organizations. I know right now, in the interest of time, we probably don't have a lot more time to engage, but we can take questions towards the end. That's about systems. So the last thing around strategy implementation is alignment. Alignment here means allocation of resources to support our goals. If you look at this organization, these are people whose main objective is to win a race. That's all they came to do. So every resource that they have is geared towards winning this race. I mean, you can tell these are about 23 people working on one vehicle. These are very highly paid professionals. But the thing is, the company makes sure that they are so aligned, they are so motivated, you provide all the resources that are necessary to win a race. So those are the 4 items that would count towards strategy implementation. We've talked about the structures that we have. We've talked about the systems that we have. We've talked about the people, and we've talked about alignment. I see we have very little time. I mean, I think we have about 10 more minutes to go. But even on the chat section, should you have a question, should you have a comment, we can always stop and address your concerns around the video, the debrief, and the items that we've seen around implementing strategy. Okay, so maybe I can invite any questions, I can invite any comments, then we can be able to discuss them some more.
I think I can ask. Now, yes, strategy looks like a very complicated thing. For people in the informal sector, is it necessary to have a strategy? And should it be a very complicated and big document, or how do you go about that? Yeah.
Thanks, Grace, for that question. And I think it connects to something else Victor has put on the chart. Victor is also asking for us to define strategy. I think I'll take those two together. So strategy doesn't need to be a complicated document. Now, why it becomes a big document is because of the long-term nature of the strategy. See, by the time you define your organization, may say you're in the transport sector, by the time you document your business from start to end, it obviously takes a lot of input. Remember, we said you're looking at your strategic position, You're looking at your strategic position, your actions, and you're also looking at the choices you're making. The reason it becomes big is it has so many inputs to it, but it can be simplified by breaking it down into chewable bits. So you decide, I have 3 years of where I'm headed, but as a small organization, this quarter, I need to achieve this much. What's important, Grace and Victor, is that whatever you're doing needs to connect to the big document that we had. That is, I think that's how I can take that. It has to be there, but its implementation doesn't need to be complicated. Okay. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, and same for Victor as well. Okay.
Hi, my question is around the four pillars, or the four. You had a schematic with 4 things.
Yes.
The people, the alignment, the structure, and the systems. Does anything take precedence? Yes, this one. It's a very, very explanatory schematic. Does any of these take precedence over the other? Should we focus more on the people or on the systems, or how do we work around this great flow that you have here?
Thanks, Carol. So I will give an illustration. Think about a vehicle that has 4 wheels. Okay, is one wheel more important than any other? Obviously not. So the 4 wheels have to work for the vehicle to move. Now, what happens is if one wheel has a puncture, that is the wheel you focus on. So in our cases, you might find that in organizations, you realize my structure is in place, and my systems are okay, my alignment is okay, but my people, there's a problem there. Now, that's an illustration of, that's a puncture that you have. So to your question, Carol, none is more important than the other, but organizations are usually at different stages at different times. But out of experience, we've seen that people and alignment are usually a challenge. With the clients that we've dealt with, we've seen most of them gravitating towards that, but all are important. It's a matter of analyzing your own business and seeing what's not working for me. You either can do it in-house or you can get some help to help you change that tire, so to speak. So I can see a question that comes in that says, how do you foster a long-term mindset when you think of tomorrow only? I think that comes from Victor as well. So Victor, to that question, ideally speaking, it is imperative, or it's very important that you have a long-term view. Now, this comes with you need developing that capability in your business. Of course, businesses at different stages or different sizes or different industries will have a different way of doing this. But at the end of the day, it is important that you have a long-term direction. If you're thinking about tomorrow only, let's say that is step 1 of running your business. The next step would be you now need to think about it a little bit longer. Look at the illustration. Right now, the world is at war. Russia has invaded Ukraine. Now, that is something that's happening thousands of miles away from us. I mean, it's in all honesty, we are going on with our work. But it's important to see, does that affect my business in any way? The people who are in transport business, we can foresee a problem with fuel changes. The fuel might go up. Now, changing of fuel prices in the transport business is critical because it means it's a critical input in your business and the cost is going to go up. So are you going to pass the cost on to your customers? I'm trying to put across the need to think beyond tomorrow, but it's a capability that comes with time, with development, and depending on the stage of the business that you're in. I see Richard is asking a question. When you want to implement a new strategy, how do you deal with resistance to change? It's a big one, Richard. This is a big one because change management is all part of strategy implementation. We've heard it many times, and it's true. Human beings don't like change. There is a way to communicate it to your people. You identify your key stakeholders in the process. Who must buy in? Eventually, everybody will. But where does it start? It starts from the decision-making organ of your organization. If you're a small business, maybe you are the sole proprietor. If you're a SME, maybe you have a small board or a group of advisors. If you're a big organization, you have a board of directors. That's where the whole process starts. So what happens is you need to cascade it. Cascade means break it into small, chewable bits. The person who is manning the gate in your organization does not need to understand the 50-page document, but he needs to know he's the immediate point of contact with all your clients. He needs to know that the client can walk in as a very happy client or a very annoyed client. So you see, by the time you get the person at the gate to agree to running with your strategy without resisting, there's a way you cascade it down to them, show them what is in it for them. Why should they even support it in the first place? So there's a whole section around strategy cascading downwards. It's a process that takes time, but it's important for people to know why should they do it. They need to walk with you. Remember in your illustration, there's a gentleman who's willing to risk his life. He's coming in front of a vehicle approaching at 80 kph. To think what this person must have been told to agree to do that, then we start seeing what cascading of the strategy is. Richard, I hope that responds to your query on how to deal with resistance to change. So Grace, I think at this point, maybe I can just take 1 or 2 minutes just to quickly do 2 more slides on Mwalimu Biashara, then I can take it back to you if that's in order.
Sure.
Okay. So quickly then, who's Mwalimu Biashara? We are a company that started 6 years ago. Our focus areas are business planning. What does that mean? We help organizations who are trying to do something new. You probably have a new product you want to roll out, or you want to go to a new geographical location, or you're completely a new business. We help you plan your business. Second item is on the strategy formulation and execution. I think this is what we've dealt with today. Just to show how do we move our strategy from the big document that Grace was talking about into a document that helps you change your business. We do financial modeling, planning, and management. Here we help organizations plan for the future. We have well-done models that speak to your business, that helps you make decisions both at a short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Personal finance coaching, we are saying after you've gained all this money at a personal level, how then do you help reach your personal goals? That's a section that talks about finance coaching, personal. Of course, we have other disciplines, HR and operational efficiencies, which is teamed up with very good consultants to help your business that might have any of these challenges. We deliver our services in-house or open forums like we are doing now. Why should you work with Mwalimu Biashara? The reason we say this is that we have established our niche. We are experts in implementing strategy. And for us, we do it in a very practical way. Our commitment is that at the end of every session, we distill the action points that are necessary and important for your business. And we give you practical tools that you carry home. Very simple, very intuitive, but helps you make your decisions. And in summary, we have our contacts here, which can also be provided after the meeting. So thank you so much, Grace. I will take it back to you. Thanks for the time that I had to share with your wonderful, wonderful clients. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for making time to break this jargon for us this afternoon. I really, really appreciate, and I know I speak for a lot of us, because I mean, this is something that sounds and looks very complex, but you've delivered it in a very nice and easy way to understand. We really, really appreciate you. I am personally going to call you after this for personal finance coaching, because,
Karibu.
yeah. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mbaye. We really, really appreciate you this afternoon for just joining us and graciously delivering that presentation to us. We really appreciate you. So we are very full. Our cup is running over, and Springboard Capital Limited does this every month. We are a microfinance institution that speaks to all your finance needs. Do you want to buy a car? We are your go-to people. Do you want working capital? We are also your go-to people. Are you looking to import a vehicle? We have a product for every person that is looking to speak to their financial needs. So should you want to get any sort of financing, please speak to us. We are open to discussions. We say yes. So I don't know, it doesn't matter how absurd it might sound to you. Just contact us, visit us on our website, give us a call, and we shall curate a product that is going to work for you. So thank you very much. Without further ado, that marks the end of our session. And Mr. Mbai, I don't know if you are okay with us sharing your presentation with our audiences today.
Yeah, absolutely, Grace. Please go ahead and share that. We'd like them to get as much as possible. Come back with questions. We're here to help them answer all the questions. Yes, please go ahead and share that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Should you want this presentation, please leave us your name and phone number on the chat box, and we'll share it to you through our WhatsApp broadcast. And there's a comment here from Rosemary. She says, a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosemary.
All right. So do have a lovely afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.